Now we have, thank you guys for coming in. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. You are listening to More Tea with Dee, the show and the podcast. We are recording simultaneously on all the platforms. So thank you so much for joining at whatever moment that you joined. I appreciate your patience. So we're going to talk about Put a Ring on It. We're on season 3. And we are talking episodes 4 and 5. We're doing a recap of what happened. The double date episode is episode 4. So on episode 4, it's getting a little heated now, and it's getting a lot more tense because now the couples are being tested on just, seeing what's out there for you, but also it seemed to be like a major test on where's your jealousy levels. Jealousy does have a lot to do with relationships, right? So there's a lot going on with this one, and we were really nervous because Charlie decided to go back on a date with Brent, right? And Otis decided to go back on a date with Milan. So they're doing a double date, and it's a yoga class, and they show up together. First, Otis shows up with Milan, and then Charlie shows up not too long after with Brent. Otis is being really messy, and these two tend to do a lot of the petty, competitive, one-up moves a lot. And that does get in the way of the experiment, and I kind of see like a little irritation when they go to confession with Dr. Nicole because she's really not having that. That's really not what this is supposed to be about. And they have a lot of that going on, right? So they go on this date and, Otis is just, noticing that Charlie is paying attention to what's happening. So he, this is a moment where they get into a conversation, Otis and his date Milan, and he's feeling Milan because we see that it comes out later about the DM. We're going to talk about that. But he's feeling her, and so he gets into a conversation about the tattoos on her back. Now, Charlie likes to go in and throw a lot of petty comments like the little girl and, kind of demeaning Milan, who is innocent in this experiment. So there's no need for her to come for the other lady, right? Because she's just a part of trying to test the love that these two do or don't have, long-term love that these two do or do not have. But so he asked to look at Milan's tattoo, and it's on her back, and she kind of bends over in a sensual way, and that kind of really threw Charlie off. She's upset. She's no longer really paying attention to her flirtation and things that she had going on with the politician Brent, right? So she ends up leaving, and it's real tense. And that double date had a lot of tension going on for sure. Now, what actually happened in the next double date is, oh my goodness, a lot happened with the next double date also. So we're going to get into that. I want to make sure, I think episode 4 overlapped into episode 5. So let me make sure that I do not combine those because I don't want to get too far ahead so you guys can finish what happened in Ep 4 before we go over to Ep 5.
Take it away, feeling too good to me. Chilling all day, all in your space is where I wanna be. Here in this room, what did you do? I just can't get enough. Too caught up in your love. I've been trying to forget, but you won't let me. Something in my brain wants you. I've been hanging by myself, asking for help, but nothing seems to work on you. Yeah, you always make me feel like home. Yeah, you never leave my thoughts alone. Yeah, you're the reason I'm going out my mind. I just can't stop thinking about you.
All right, loves, thanks so much for coming back. So we're talking again, Put a Ring on It, season 3. We're going over episode 4 right now. I'm your host, Dee Shields. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are listening right now either through More Tea with Dee, the podcast, or More Tea with Dee, the show that's on every podcast platform that you're tuned into. So thank you so much for doing so. Now, Kenneth is arrogant. We found that out for sure in episode 4. There's a comment that he makes to Dr. Nicole. Kenneth is with Shorty, and he does have a lot of tension going on because Shorty is making it clear as we get deeper into this season that he was able to slide his way in to her, which she feels like she's on a higher level than Kenneth is able to keep up with financially, and that starts really coming out. And Kenneth is, kind of using his Baton Rouge, Louisiana arrogance to kind of shadow those shortcomings that she's pointing out to everyone that he has. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, I think, when we recap over season 5 in a few. So he's arrogant. He says something to Dr. Nicole, like, he says, every woman I meet wants me, in response to, dates that he goes out with. That does he feel any type of way with when he went on that one date with her ex-coworker, right? So his, arrogance, Baton Rouge, Louisiana kind of move, definitely shows up in episode 4. You'll enjoy that episode. Shorty now, she decided to cut off Hollywood. That was the connection that she had. But she's wanted to cut him off because Hollywood is checking off all of her boxes. And as we can see, as we get to know Shorty more in season 3, her box, the number one box, is that financial, meet me at where I'm at, financial box, right? So Hollywood's able to do that. Also, he has his stuff together, knows what he wants, knows where he's going. And Shorty is really into that kind of person. And she's really over Kenneth, because you're going to find out later that Kenneth told her some lies in order to get her. So she's deep and caught up with him before she figures out who he really is. Can we not relate, right? So going over to Otis and Shay. Shay's like, that's not my man. To Alfonso and Shay. Shay's jealousy gets in the way on the double date. It gets in the way in a huge way for the experiment. And Fonso ends up openly flirting with the sexy woman that he was with, and she saw it immediately. So Shay came with her date, sitting down to dinner, but barely could focus on what was going on that date, because the minute she comes in and sees that Fonso's having a good time, she ends up hindering the experiment. And Dr. Nicole makes a comment in regards to that. So let's go over here to Twitter, where you guys are responding to my tweet, where I said Dr. Nicole said that, she had told Shay later on, you short circuit your opportunity to collect real data. You are not giving him, Alfonso, the opportunity to play out his decisions so you can really see where you fit in. And that she says that later on in episode 5 of this season 3 right here. And it's an important point to highlight when we're looking at what's going on in episodes 4 and 5 with the double dates, right? So Shay realized with Dr. Nicole's group session that she had, remember that group session where she sits down, her and Fonso, that the pain that she's feeling from all this mistrust, the jealousy, everything, that she may have to really make a choice to leave. That one's a tough one, right? So she's in a really tough space because she's realizing that every time I see him with someone, I'm jealous, and there's some things that are going to come up, and you're going to find out why that happens and what the story is behind how that triggers. So we're going to get back to that in just a few.
I can't let him take my soul. I can't let him take my soul. No. Oh, I can't let him take my soul. No. See, we was cool right before it hit the fence, but it hit the fan when I got him down at the bench. But I took a break, I had to leave and go get cleansed. God forgive me for all my sins. I can't say these hoes, cause my last name ain't Kent. Cooking on the stove, that's the way he paid the rent. Working on the pole, that's the way she pays tuition. Better watch your soul, cause you know they trying to get it. Yeah. I learned my right from wrong on a song. I let my heart bleed on my sleeve through microphones. I'm trying to right my wrongs by writing out my wrongs. Ran through a check, cause it's hard to live off bread alone. So if you see me slipping, yeah, let me know. Cause it ain't the end of times yet, I know, but it's getting close. Yeah, I need my space to breathe, that's why I be going ghost. I ain't trying to stay up on that wide road, cause I can't let him take my soul. Nah, no. Oh, I can't let him take my soul. Nah, no. I can't let him take my soul. Nah, no. Oh, I can't let him take my soul. Nah, no. thinking I'm bluffing, but I promise I do it. That K got a drum, like murder and booming. Sending you vert, if I get my little Uzi. They thinking I'm crazy, I'm gon' see you to hate this. People I'm saying, get what I'm painting. A picture big, I call it little baby.
All right, you guys. So these double dates are really a major experiment in just trust. You know, the simultaneous dates are experiment in trust and self-assuredness in the relationship. So this is, again, something that shouldn't be done outside of one of these controlled experiments on these type of reality TV shows where they're monitoring this, because this could go a whole lot of ways that you may not be prepared for. I really am shocked to see, you know, outside of Dr. Nicole sitting with them, I'm shocked that they don't even have therapists on scene for these dates, for the way some of these scenes have played out. Right? So, you know, Kenneth and Shay, they're uneasy about the dates that they're going on when they got ready for that double date. Shay starts crying. She's that deep into him. And Alfonso even makes a point to the confession camera, like, you know, I really can tell that this girl is really, really in love with me. And he just kind of smirks about it in a way, but I'm not sure that he really understands how intense it is. But I also think there is a point where he may really fear that kind of deep love that she has, to where it's so jealous that he may not be able to do the type of business that he does, which turns out that he's I'm sorry, I said Kenneth and Shay and I meant Alfonso. Alfonso and Shay. So he's really nervous, you know, about what I do for a living. Can I have this type of jealousy around? So again, I'll say again, Alfonso and Shay, they're uneasy about the dates that they're going on. Shay starts crying while she's getting dressed. And again, Alfonso's realizing deep that her love is deep for him. And it's just an experiment, but he's thinking in his mind as he talks to the cameras, he says it too, that, you know, like, what is this kind of look on his face? Can he really handle this? There's even a point where he's sitting in the session with Dr. Nicole, and Fonso was sweating through the shirt. We could see the sweat on camera, you know. So it's a lot going on with that. And again, I believe this is the couple that really is going to have to make a decision, even an ultimatum, so to speak, with this. He shouldn't put a ring on it, because he did it before and he took the ring off, and that's how they ended up on the show, right? So Kenneth is worked up, and he's upset as he and Shorty talk before the double date. So he's like, I'm sorry. He's worked up and upset when they're talking about getting ready for the double date. He's bent out of shape, but we got to go back to that first episode where he took her phone after her date, remember, and he went in the room and locked himself in, and Shorty, it was really upset. You can still see that this is really on Kenneth's face, because he's really nervous, but he's also upset about where this could be going, because he had did screenshots of Shorty's bank account. So it's a lot of messiness going on with that couple as well, right? So they have their issues as they get ready for the date, and Kenneth is not focused on his date when he went on his double date. So episode 4 kind of continued on and kind of runs into episode 5. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to tell you guys give our recap of what happened in episode 5. We'll come back in just a few moments and talk that. But the double date one, it was just so much tension that happened that episode ended up running over, right? So look, we get into season 5 to episode 5, I'm sorry, and we'll talk in season 3, you guys, and put a ring on it. We get into episode 5 and into the dates. So we're still on these double dates. This one's called Double Your Pleasure. They continue on these double dates and we get to see different scenes. On Shay's date, she's there, she's talking to the guy, he's prepared, ready to have a good time with Shay and just get to know her, looking for whatever opportunities that are out there that he may find the one that is for him, right? And he's kind of, going along with the experiment, but Shay is extremely distracted. So Fonso, he ends up walking in with his date, and she's a good-looking woman, and Shay, she starts getting all bent out of shape, no longer paying attention to her date. So she starts having words back and forth with Fonso's date right into the beginning of their double dates, into the dinner. They didn't even start eating their food. So Fonso gets upset at the jealousy. Then there's some words continue to go back and forth with Fonso Day, who's no longer playing for the cameras, no longer in the mood for this lady, and tests to Shay, like, if you couldn't handle this experiment, why did you even come on the show, kind of thing. So they end up getting to it, almost a near fight. And Shay and Fonso leave. They leave their double dates, and the double dates ended up connecting at the table and enjoying the rest of the night because Shay and Fonso drove off with a nasty scene about to go down between them. So that double date ended in entire chaos, right? So Shorty and Kenneth are on their double dates. The date comes to pick up Shorty. Kenneth is, melodramatic, pats the date down, mentions something about that's what I do at my job. I'm like, oh my God, another job. What do you do for a living, Kenneth, right? Because he's always mentioning work, different work. And so Shorty's date, he's a businessman. He's put together extremely well. Shorty also talks to us later, again, her focus is on that financial stability, that financial togetherness. Look at her apartment complex. It's a high rise, looking at the prestigious area of Atlanta kind of look. So she's really not someone that's about to have some dude that was able to hustle his way in with a bunch of lies and not telling his whole story, as we find out later. So Shorty mentions that Kenneth had lied to her about his success level to get her. And once she had got to this point where she had now fallen for him, that's when a lot of his truth is coming out. So she was in love with him by the time she realizes that he is not on her level. That's just the way that she put that. Turns out that he has a child that's 6 months or something, or 6 years old, something. Just really, Shorty doesn't have any children. So this guy is bringing way more to the table than she expected. And she's not really sure if he does want to put a ring on it, if she even wants it at this point. So Kenneth's date, when he goes out with his date, she's flirtatious. She comes, she shows, nipples all showing through the shirt. She's just doing the most when she shows up on a date. She comes across to me like she's just trying too hard. She just came across like she was trying too hard to make this connection happen with Kenneth. I don't know if he was her type or whatever, but she was really going in hard, very flirtatious. And they're on the dates at a really nice kind of lounge kind of eatery place, and they are not paying attention to their dates. They're more trying to focus and hear what the other person is saying. So they were too focused on each other, not really sure how Dr. Nicole's going to feel like that experiment went for them on their double dates, right? So as they're talking later, and the confession happens, before the confession, Kenneth ended up revealing to his date that he has, again, a child. I think it's a 6-year-old kid. So that's kind of when the viewers, we're seeing what Shorty is dealing with, and we're starting to agree with Shorty. It's a no for us. Don't even accept it if he wants to put a ring on it, because he's just not it. It's just something about this guy where it's just we can't allow him to capture Shorty. He's just not the one. That's where we feel about it right now, right? So Dr. Nicole went on to talk to Shay after that explosive date in episode 5, just trying to get in her head about what's going on. And again, I mentioned to you guys what she said to her. She told Shay that you're going to short circuit your opportunity to collect real data. You're not giving Alfonso the opportunity to play out his decision so you can really see where you fit in. And that's important to really understand about this experiment and what it is supposed to be, not just for the couples on the show, but for the couples that are watching and that for the couples that can relate. So as they're talking, you guys, in their talk, as Dr. Nicole's talking to Shay, Shay is telling Dr. Nicole that her and Fonzo actually split the day before the courthouse because when he had the ring on it before, they ended up splitting because another woman had posted on social media a photo with Fonzo and was saying he's the love of her life. So, of course, an explosive argument. They're not ready. They leave the courthouse. And at that point, some point, I guess that's when Fonzo took the ring back, and that's how they end up on this, whether or not he wants to give it back to her or not. Interesting, right? So that's episode 5. In episode 5, the men hang out, they play pool, they decide to give each other some advice, right? So Otis is saying there's no more arguments. He's tired of arguments with Charlie. He's over the arguments versus just having a decent discussion, which we can see that he's able to have with Milan. So he says that that's where he stands with everything right now on this experiment. And then Fonzo says something to Kenneth, that you need to provide. Because Fonzo, we can see that definitely, him and Otis definitely have that all taken care of when it comes to the ability to provide for their women. And he's telling Kenneth, you need to provide and make sure you're never in a situation where your isn't together, right? All men begin to agree that they have had enough of the chaos and the arguments and everything that's going on. That's the discussion that they have while they're out playing pool, right? So Otis admits that he has been DMing Milan, and when he says that in the confession, things go south, okay? And Charlie's upset. She says that she wants to leave. She wants to get up. She's hurt. She's upset. She said that this new embarrassment is a deal breaker for her, and she's over him. So she took that part, like she was not okay with him deciding to wait into the sit-down session with Dr. Nicole and the couples to say that he had been DMing Milan. She was not happy about that. But again, it's going to see that there's a real connection happening with Otis and Milan. Will he choose her or will he choose Charlie, right? And then there's some advice that Dr. Nicole gives at the end of episode 5. So we're going to come back and do one more playback, and we'll come back and wrap the show up. Thank you so much for tuning in to More Tea with Dee, the podcast, More Tea with Dee, the show. I appreciate you guys so much. I am your host, Dee Shields. You can find me on socials, and I'll share those links in just a few. So look, Dr. Nicole ends up telling the couples on this episode 5 that this process is tough as each one of them realize that they cannot control another person. That is not a part of what can happen in relationships to have balance and happiness, right? She says it's up to each person to govern their own self while you're away from the other. That part, right? So you really need to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. As we say all the time on my podcast, I am Dee Shields, the podcast that, we're not in this for babysitting men. Women are loyal, men are loyal, and the other person is, if the man is loyal and the woman's stepping out, if the woman's loyal, the guy stepping out, or wherever your situation is, however you love, and the other person is stepping out and you're being loyal, there's an irresponsibility happening, and you can't babysit what that person does. That person needs to step out and do what they're supposed to do when they're away from you and come back and join together with a connection. Without the chaos, there needs to be balance in these relationships, or they just will not work. Bring to the table what is expected, and if you're not able to, don't lie, step away, right? So that is all with Put a Ring on It recaps of episode 4 and 5. I am your host, Dee Shields. You can find me on socials the same way. I am Dee Shields. I am DeeShields. Thank you guys so much for coming by. Again, know that I appreciate you, and we will talk again as we discuss episode 6 in the first week of May.